Well, good morning. Today is Saturday. It is my baby brother-in-law's birthday, so happy birthday. But I just got ready and I just wanted to, there's so many thoughts going through my head, and I wanted to kind of talk about what I'm thinking, what's going on in my brain right now. I'm just finishing up my matcha, like making it. So we're gonna have some tea together, and yeah, I want to talk to you about where I came from and my journey on getting here, and yeah, just kind of like what I experienced and that sort of thing. So I'll show you the fit. Very exciting, and then let's spill the tea. All right, fantasy fit. I say fantasy because I am absolutely not wearing these today, but just thought I'd toss them on. I thought the red on the bottoms would be really cute with the red dress. But honestly, I'm probably just gonna put on my little sandals and be comfy. But yeah, so that's the fit. And let me just give you a little close up because gorgeous, stunning, we love. Anyway, I got these in Thailand, so you already know. They're not what you think they are. But anyway, let's go get our matcha going and let's spill the tea. Let's spill the tea. Okay, so a little bit more background. So I noticed a lot of people had questions, not just about my weight loss, but also how was I able to achieve it, and also me as a teacher, stuff like that. When I began working, I was like, well, actually, I was probably 11 or 12 because I was working with my parents and doing that sort of thing. I always had this mindset of having a job, always working, never stop working, right? Sean, hubby, and I got together in 2006, and he's a filmmaker, and by I want to say 11 or 12, we decided we were going to have our own film business. While that was happening, we were building our film business. I was, I had graduated looking for a teaching job. When I had graduated, everything had crashed. The housing market, everything had been just destroyed, decimated. It was almost impossible to get a teaching job. But I was determined. So I got a job as a loan processor, and when I had my first opportunity to teach, I took it. It was a pay cut, but I took it because I went to school to be a teacher. So that started my journey in education. I was a special ed English teacher. I started as an art teacher in an alternative school, and then they moved me into the English position. And my special ed background helped me a lot because a lot of these students were in a situation where nobody understood why they were struggling. And obviously a lot of it was like home situations because I said it was an alternative school. So, a lot of my students just struggled with focusing. And I used my background as a special ed teacher to help them in that regard. Every single job after that was harder and harder and harder. Education and teaching never got easier. And the more I moved around, or I got riffed, or whatever happened, the next job was somehow even harder. And everyone back in those days was like, well, the first 2 or 3 years is hard, and then, as you get along, it gets easier and easier. That was never my experience. Education and being a teacher always got harder, no matter how much experience I had, no matter how much I did. it just got harder. And if I'm being frank, I never really wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a movie star, but I was told you have to have a job when you graduate, so teaching is it. So I did it. And I've always been in the mindset that I've always had to have a job. If I lost a job or, rift, reduction in force, or if I was leaving a job, I had to have another job in place to take over. I just could never, ever be unemployed. And so 10 years later, as each job gets harder and harder, the pandemic happens, it gets worse and even more hard. And eventually it gets to the point where not only is the job itself so difficult, it becomes a situation where I am starting to now be targeted and bullied. And I had experienced that in previous schools as well, but this was on a whole other level. This was on a whole other level. And for a while, I thought it was in my head because I know I have ADHD, and with ADHD comes RSD. RSD is rejection sensitivity dysphoria. Most people who have ADHD have RSD. And basically what that means, if you are being critiqued in any way, it feels like a personal attack to your core. And I didn't know I had this. So whenever I was critiqued, even if it was in a friendly way, it still felt like it was an attack on who I was, and in every way I was a failure, right? So it's just like this horrible thing to have, that sensitivity. On the other side of that, when you are being bullied and targeted and you have RSD, it is so dangerous. I mean, I was at the level where I no longer wanted to wake up in the morning, if you understand what I mean. So being in that situation, not only is being a teacher outrageously difficult, but now being targeted and bullied and all these other things adding on to that, I'm thinking I am failing. I'm a failure. I don't know what to do. In the same vein, I'm recognizing now, if I don't leave this job, I am not going to see tomorrow. And it was that moment of clarity that kind of switched and changed everything for me. Like I said before, I came from an ingrained idea that if I didn't have a job after or a plan after, then I failed, and I had to keep going until I had the plan. Meanwhile, I also have my film company with my husband, and it's going pretty well. It's doing all right. But again, I had to have another job. I was health insurance, I was a consistent paycheck. When you have your own business, you don't know when the next paycheck is coming in. So you have to be, it was all on me to be the consistent paycheck, to be the health insurance, all those things. That pressure was unbearable. And which is also why, knowing that I had to leave, but also recognizing why this choice was so difficult, made it so difficult, because I didn't want to fail my family. And so I started making deals with myself. And this now goes into the weight loss. Between the pandemic and all these other factors of how education got really hard, and I was still going to the gym and all these other things, and yet I was still putting on more and more weight, and I had stopped caring, and I just could not figure out what I could do. And before I knew it, in 2021, I was 180 pounds. That was, I had stopped going onto the scale. I stopped looking. I couldn't fit in any of my clothes. It got really, really bad. So finally, I end up in this last school and things get really bad. Day 3, I overhear teachers talking about, how they can't have those people moving into their neighborhood because they just bought their house. And if those people move into their neighborhood, they're going to bring down the value of their house and they can't have that. So it was just these horrible, oh my God. I'm sitting across from my new teacher friend and we are staring at each other as this is happening, as this other person is saying these things. And we are dumbfounded because the way she is talking is right? Don't you agree? And we are just beside ourselves. I had never experienced such blatant, sure, everyone agrees with me about these people, right? And that was day 3. I sat in my car and I just cried. I sobbed. I sobbed so much and I was like, I made a mistake. I don't think I can do this. I can't be in this school. But again, in my head, you don't have another position. You don't have another job. You have to continue doing this. I make it to the end of the year. And at this point, things are getting a little dicey. I'm noticing, some behavior from certain teachers. And at this point, I am staying away from all the teachers. I am just keeping my distance. And as the next year, my last year rolls in, things are getting worse. And at this point, I had confided in my supervisors that, these horrible things were being said about certain groups of people. And apparently in doing so, I got everyone mad at me. And even though the right thing to do was to report it, I was being punished for doing the right thing. I also started to advocate for my students. They were putting kids in my class that they knew were behavior problems and not special needs, cognitive issues. So these kids didn't belong in my class, but they were putting them in my class because it was a punishment to me. But what they didn't realize was I had already dealt with students that have behavior problems, and I never have an issue with students, whether they have behavior problems or not. I got along with all the kids that they tried to, punish me with or whatever, or thought they were punishing me with. They still ended up loving me. They also started interviewing the students and trying to put words in their mouths and accuse me of things. And my students were like, none of that happened. I don't know why you're saying that about our teacher. And they would come back to me and tell me these things were happening. And it was so hard. It was so hard to deal with. And because my students were standing up for me, and the adults in the room were so much worse than the kids. And it's not supposed to be like that. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not, the kids are kids. They don't know better. They're just little jerks, The adults in the room are supposed to know better. And they were horrible. I was suddenly getting emails from random unnamed people threatening me, threatening to call my previous principal and reveal the kind of person that I really am, and all these horrible, I totally forgot about that email thing until just now. I felt like I was being stalked and I was losing my mind. And so November of that year, I just couldn't. And at that point, I had lost about 45 pounds. Within I would say probably 4 or 5 months, 45 pounds down. And it was coming off a lot faster And not just because I figured out my chemistry, but because when you're as stressed as I am, or I was, it was so easy to not have an appetite and not eat. That's not to say, that losing the weight was easy, but there were a lot of factors that made it easier, because not only did I no longer have an appetite and no longer want to wake up in the morning and all these other things, I remember the promise I had made to myself in the previous year, which was if I could get to 125, I could quit teaching. And I looked at my husband the previous year and I said to him, I can't teach anymore. I don't know how I can continue to do this. If I make a deal with you, will you support me? And I said to him, if I can lose this weight, will you let me quit teaching? We'll figure it out, but will you support me and let me quit teaching? And he said, whatever you need. And so at this point in November, I was so close to my goal. And because I was so close, I was more determined than ever to get the weight off. Now, at this point as well, I had been a teacher for 10 years, and this is the part I want you to pay attention to. I've been through therapy, talk therapy, for a few months at this point, and even my therapist was like, you need to get out. And I was like, I can't. Everything depends on me. I can't. She's like, you own your home. You don't have any dependents except for your puppy. You're in a position where you can figure it out. You have a support system. You can do this. And I said, I can't. I'll be a failure if I quit. I've been teaching for 10 years. If I quit, I'm a failure. Deciding to quit teaching was one of the hardest decisions of my life. And here's what I need you to understand. It was also the best decision of my life. Your brain is going to constantly tell you to continue doing what you're doing because that's what it knows. Your brain is afraid of change. I was terrified of change. I still am a little wary and scared of change. Change is scary. It is totally normal to be fearful of change. But when you take control and you are the determining factor of that change, while it is still terrifying, if you can control that, the change will be for your benefit. And it may be one of the best things you ever do and change the entire course and trajectory of your life. So many people stay and stick it out and do the same thing over and over and over again until it kills them, not realizing that you have the control to make the change. You can change things. When I was talking about making mistakes and maybe eating the wrong thing, part of that realization of, okay, I made one mistake, but the next thing I do will be the right choice. Those are all decisions that we make. Change is scary, but as long as you understand and you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, it's worth it. And what I want you to understand is you don't have to be in the darkest of the dark to want to return to the light. You know, stand up for yourself and don't let anybody kick you or hurt you or do anything. You don't deserve it. We're all just people trying to survive, trying to find happiness and meaning and love. I am still healing from what I have experienced as an educator in this country. And I don't know how long it's going to take for me to be healed. But I do know that I am in a place right now that I have never been happier, stronger, more resilient. For the first time in my life, I feel optimistic and hopeful and excited. And what I want you to take away from my experience and what I've endured is that you may feel like you are trapped, because I definitely felt like I was trapped. There's always a way out, and don't ever be afraid to ask for help, because I wouldn't be here if I didn't have the love and support of the people around me. And the kind of person that I am, I push people away. I always pushed people away. I always kept everyone at a distance, even my husband, everyone. Nobody really knew who I was. I felt safer in my own little cocoon. But the truth is, don't be afraid to ask for help, because no one's judging you. No one's looking at you and thinking you're weak or dumb or any of those things. If anything, I always admired the people who asked for help, because to me, that was one thing that I always struggled with. And I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for the people who helped me be here. I did a lot of this because I have the privilege of having people around me that supported me and loved me and gave me strength. But make no mistake, I did this too. Me. I made it happen. And there's no reason why you can't either. I didn't mean to get emotional or anything like that, but it's hard to talk about these things, even now, almost 2 years later. But remembering what they put me through, and thinking it was all in my head, when the reality is, it wasn't. For those who are here because they want to change and they want to do better and be better, you can do it. And if you have any questions or if you need any support or help, this community is an amazing community, and we are all here for each other. So don't be afraid to reach out, leave a comment. If you want any advice on how to lose weight, because I did do it. I lost it. I didn't take any medication to lose it. I lost it myself without any help of anything else, just my own determination and what I understood to work. So I hope this helped. And I hope you have an amazing day. And thank you for being here. Thank you for spending time with me today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. I swear, not all of my vlogs are this dark or sad or whatever, but we're all about growing and continuing this exciting journey and changing. So Thank you for being here, and I will see you tomorrow. Until next time.